All right, if you're just coming in, we're going to get started in about 9 minutes. So feel free to put your name, where you're from, in the chat box, and we will get started in about 9 minutes. Hey, Karen from Australia. Awesome. So you've been talking to Jamie about the Esporta. Looking forward to having you here. Thanks for joining us. How are things going down in Australia? Hey, Jamie.
Good morning, Sean.
Hey, we have Karen from Perth, Western Australia, said he's been talking to you about the Esporta system, just joined in.
You bet. Yeah, was just back and forth with email. Nice to have you, Karen.
Awesome. All right, if you're just joining us, go ahead and put your name, where you're from, in the chat box, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Jamie, are you in the office today?
Yes, sir. Yep, in the office. A little bit of a better setting than in my my basement office. Karen's actually seen me in the basement office, so a little different today. Nice to get out and get into a little bit of a different atmosphere.
Awesome. We have Genevieve here from Quebec. You know Genevieve, don't you, Jamie?
Yes, nice to have you, Genevieve. Hope all is well in Quebec. Hope you're staying safe.
All right, we're going to get started in about 5 minutes. So if you're just joining us right now, go ahead and put your name, where you're from, in the chat box. Corinne said they've been on lockdown for about 3 to 4 weeks, and cases are coming down near to zero. So that's good to hear.
Great to hear.
What time is it in Australia right now?
I think it's about 12 a.m. So he's burning the midnight oil.
Man, I love it. Midnight. Wow. Committed to learn right now. Hey, Daryl from Esporta. He said, can sleep in tomorrow.
Perfect.
All right.
Kieran must be getting into his winter months coming up pretty soon, so it must be getting a little cooler.
So if you're just joining us right now, go ahead and put your name and where you're from and who you work for in the chat box, and we'll get started in about 4 minutes.
Morning, Russ. Morning, Eddie.
Good morning. Good morning.
10 degrees Celsius. Wow, that's cold. We have Chris from Surf
Hey, Chris,
South
how are you
Colorado.
doing? Karen Sampson.
For you, Eddie and Ross, Kieran's all the way from Perth, Australia. I've been speaking with them. Very nice
Fantastic.
gentleman.
Gotta be nighttime over there, right?
12 a.m.
We have Surf Pro
Whole nother
Norman right
day.
here in Oklahoma.
They're late.
Hey, Brock. It's Brock. I haven't seen Brock since area meetings. So,
Are you guys getting bad storms over there in Norman, or have they already passed through? We're starting to get them here in Tulsa right now. All right, if you're just joining us, I know more people are coming into the chat room right now. Feel free to put your name, where you're from, who you work with, and we'll get started in about 3 minutes.
yeah, up here in Tulsa, we're thinking about building an ark. We've got some serious rain happening going right now. So if I lose power, you know what happened.
Yeah,
So,
the storm is coming.
No, I just thought about that.
hey,
Like,
Stephen, how you doing, sir?
Jody Russell from Lake Havasu. I love it out there. It's a beautiful country.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to have you, Jody. Jody, is that Todd Russell as Jody Russell? Nice to have you guys, the sport owners.
All right, if you're just joining us, we have many more people just come in. Leave your name, where you're from in the chat box. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar as well for you guys to ask questions. So feel free to just let us know where you're from, and we will get started in just a couple minutes.
It might be a claim.
All right, we just had a few more people join in. Go ahead and leave your name and where you're from in the chat box, and we'll get started in about 1 minute.
Well, Mike Whittle, how are you doing, young man? It's good to see you on here, bud.
John?
Yakima, nice. That's close to us.
Thanks for
We're up here in
yeah.
Kelowna, BC.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, John.
All right, if you're just joining us right now, go ahead and put your name and where you're from in the chat box, and we will get started in about 30 seconds. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a poll up real quick before we get started. We're going to have a few polls throughout the webinar and a chance to win a $25 Starbucks gift card just for participating. So feel free to mark on that. We'll capture your information when you're on there. So we will be picking a winner at the end of the webinar to send out a $25 gift card via email or the phone. So if you can, just go ahead. We'll have a few polls throughout the session, and you can actually just we can get some feedback from you guys as well. Andrew from Toronto.
Hey, what's up, Felix? Felix is on here. Andrew from Toronto. Looks like Doug from Surf Pro Denver East.
Tammy with San Marcos. How you doing, Tammy? Good to see some familiar.
My buddy Andrew there. He'll like my my jersey there. Hopefully he's a fan. Hopefully you are, Andrew.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to let Eddie and Russ do the kickoff here and do an introduction of everybody. So Eddie, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Absolutely. Russ, are you going to be sharing your screen
I'll be
with
sharing it.
the you're going to be sharing it? Okay,
Mhm.
fantastic. Well, first off, welcome everybody. It's good to have you. I know that you guys are pretty much a captive audience for the most part with the COVID-19 and all of that. So we really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day. We're super excited to be here with the guys from Asporta. We've got Jamie Sands, who is here, who is a sales expert for Asporta, and we also too have Russ. Just to kind of give you Russ, I know is not gonna tout a lot of his accolades, but I'm gonna force him to do that. He has got over 30 years of commercial dry cleaning experience and commercial cleaning experience, and makes him a true subject matter expert. So if you guys see, we've got a poll up right now, and we encourage you guys to just respond. We're going to be holding a drawing for a $25 Starbucks gift card that we'll send you electronically whenever we basically pick your name out of the virtual hat. And the first poll question is, what is your biggest fear when getting into soft contents? A lot of you may currently be referring your soft contents out to textile restoration companies. And you could be doing this in-house and increasing your overall revenue base. So today's topic is going to be 3 things that you might not know about soft contents. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Russ, our resident subject matter expert. If you can kind of let everybody know a little bit about your background, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Well, actually, I have, as you can tell by my picture, a lot more experience than that. My first 20 years from the time I was very small was in retail dry cleaning, 3rd generation dry cleaner, genetically cursed to do it. Nobody chooses it on purpose. And then I got into restoration work, and I did that for 25 years, first as a independent regional, not franchise, but company owner, and then I spent 10 years as a franchise. After that, some of you may know me from working with iCat software, so I got into the inventory part and the documentation and technology, and that led me to where I am today, the quality assurance manager for Asporta. My main job is to help prospective buyers with questions and basically logistics of how to get into soft contents, and then from the time they do, I work with our network of operators for ongoing training and support in pretty much any area of help that they need, whether it's soft contents, inventory, pricing, customer service, marketing. We pretty much hand in hand work with our users on an ongoing basis to help them to grow both their soft and hard contents divisions.
Fantastic. And again, welcome, Russ. It's an honor and a privilege to have you guys both on here sharing the wealth of knowledge that you guys have. Some of the things that we're going to cover today on the agenda, it's going to be easier to sell than you think. I know a lot of people have either some preconceived notions of what all it involves, or they think that it's actually going to be a lot more expensive, or it's going to be a lot harder to be able to sell soft contents, and we'll get into that. The second part is it's not as expensive as you think, and number 3 is it's not as hard to learn as you think. It sounds simple, but we believe in the KISS and in the KISS mentality. Keep it simple. I'm not going to use the last acronym on there, but we definitely want to keep it simple. So if you look at so far on the poll results right now, it looks like that just being able to sell the services is actually leading the way, which is going to ironically transition into our topic. It's easier to sell than what you think.
Okay. So what we'll do is look at both the kind of a refresher on the technology itself so that you see what you're selling. We need to know from a marketing standpoint why processing your own soft contents in-house is a differentiator when you're out there marketing to your audience. So if you think of traditional washing, both commercial and what you have at home, it's normal agitation. Asporta's patented technology is just the opposite. It uses hydraulic pressure to both better clean and more safely clean clothing, allowing you to use cool water and proprietary neutral organic detergents and sanitizers that are green and environmentally friendly. So we will talk about the technology in more detail with you guys, but just understand that this is not traditional washing, it's new. And what that enables you to do is to better understand not only what soft contents are, but how you can now process them. Because a lot of companies out there don't really understand what soft content encompasses. So if you look at what we normally consider to be soft contents, things that are hanging in a closet or in a dresser drawer, but it goes beyond that into specialty items like dress shoes and purses and stuffed animals and belts, leathers and suedes, beaded and sequin garments, sporting equipment and gear, hunting equipment and gear. If you take a house and you take the roof off and dump it upside down if you could, everything that falls out that doesn't break, that's soft contents. And so with the technology being both different, more gentle, but better, you're able to clean a variety of things that you couldn't clean before. That's really important. That'll also help us market it as well. So once we understand that, now we know what we're selling and how easy is it to sell? Well, we're not marketing necessarily new prospects, although there are a lot of different avenues of revenue that you pursue with the Asporta. But let's start with the foundation of our marketing, and that's simply educating our current marketing audience as to what you can do. And one of the dynamics that I found that's really, really important is when you are marketing a new service that you're bringing in-house, a marketing prospect and adjuster is not necessarily going to base it on the fact that, well, are you qualified to do this? Do you have the experience to do this? That's what we all think that they're going to do. But what we found in the marketplace with all of our network is an adjuster, an agent, a property manager, they're going to base giving you this new revenue stream on the current work you're doing for them now. And so your work or your reputation or the quality of your work is going to be naturally extended to this new service that you're bringing in-house. So the marketing is not nearly as hard as you might think it is.
Absolutely. I think that, if you take a look at it, we talk about, money flying out the door. We hear from restoration owners all the time, that they're having a hard time meeting their goals and objectives each and every year because, without named events, like last year, we didn't have a true named event. The only one that we did it headed out east, and we really didn't get any work from it. So no freeze events. It's been a very temperate, mild winter. Things like that. COVID-19 kind of came, at a good time to be able to boost some of those things. But if you're not meeting your goals and objectives, how many jobs for textile restoration currently are you referring out per month? And soft contents jobs are you giving to these textile restoration companies? Is it none? Is it in upwards of 9+ jobs if you're doing a lot of fire and things like that? So we're going to transition into not necessarily about how easy it is to sell, but your profit margins that are going to be there and how you can actually boost and increase and add a revenue channel to your existing business to help you meet your goals and objectives. So again, take that poll right there, and you're entered to win a $25 gift card courtesy of Asporta, and they'll send it to you electronically. So Russ, if you want to expand.
Yeah, and I think I just want to make one comment on that. I think, again, in the times that, we see today, and it's just so uncertain that we don't know, when the phone is going to ring for us to get our next job. And so it's absolutely critical that we have to maximize the revenue per claim that on the current work that we are already receiving. And I think, again, going to the point number one is it's already there. And I think people have been fearful in really adopting this method of soft contents because it's that I don't want to be a dry cleaner. I don't want to get into this. Maybe you don't do your own laundry at home. Maybe you aren't really doing any of that. And so there's a fear involved. And I think that that's where experts like Russ and our other trainer, Daryl Nestable at our company, in support with what you guys are doing, Sean and Eddie, on the sales and marketing side, we can really help take you guys to the next level to understand that this is not difficult to do.
Well, and the market is there. You go to a fire now and someone's getting the clothing, or you refer it out. So we're not creating a new revenue stream. We're simply including a new revenue stream on claims we're already on. We walk over revenue on every single loss site that we go to, and it's not just fire, it's water as well. And then we want to incorporate that when we can include these services, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, not only from soft contents, we're going to increase our market share on hard content and water mitigation.
One of the things that I wanted to chime in on, having spent years as a commercial account specialist, one of the things that I wanted to pride myself in was being that one-stop shop for my clients. I did not want to have to ever tell them no. And ironically, the franchise that I worked for did not have an Asporta system. And I was referring out a ton of work, to the textile restoration companies for the hotels that I took care of, because they wanted me to be able to take care of their linens and specialty needs and things like that. So I was like, yes, I can do it. But then I lost all quality control because I had to hand this over to a third party. There were things that got lost, and I had to be the person that had to answer for those kinds of things. There was a lack of quality and consistency, those kinds of things. Those are just definitely not situations to where, that I wanted to do, for lack of a better word, a disservice to my clients, by not being able to have all of the answers and provide the kind of quality and passion and consistency for them that I could on every other front, aside from soft goods.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned was, are we relying on cat work, seasonal work? Well, when we increase our revenue on every claim, then that rising tide lifts all boats. When situations happen and you're now getting more contents from every loss, then those seasonal or cat work scenarios actually help you even more. And you look at what's going on today, and it can be down the road an opportunity if we are positioned to be able to handle soft contents that have been potentially impacted by COVID-19. We're actually having a webinar on that tomorrow. Then we can now go to the assisted living facilities, hotels and resorts, and we can talk about the ability to clean their linens, their textiles, their soft goods, and be able to provide that service that we can't currently provide. So it's not just for regular work, it actually builds on itself, and it gives us more opportunities.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, and even though it's not necessarily an apples to apples comparison, but I mean, if you look at COVID-19, who would have ever thought that restoration companies, if you would have asked them this question last year, how many cleanings they would be doing, and how much revenue they would be generating, you figured it out, and that this is a very complex virus, that you're putting, employees at risk and all of these kinds of things already. But I guarantee you, if you talk to everybody last year about how many general cleanings or preventative measure cleanings they would have scheduled out this year, they wouldn't have had 1/100th of those on the books for a revenue base. And this is an actual easier revenue base to add than even that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, we put a poll up and just kind of seeing the temperature of the room, and it looks like some of you are not referring out any work right now, but a good majority of you are referring 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 jobs a month. So, it's definitely something to start thinking about. Like if you open those services and you make that available, is there more opportunity for your business to grow there? And not to mention just some of the, marketing type work you can do with the local government and things, especially right now with COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of independent franchise-based restoration companies around the country, doing different services from cleaning vehicles to doing some of the linens in these types of facilities, just to help the local community that's actually generating bigger revenue or opening bigger doors as well. So definitely something to consider as well.
And to that, Sean, one thing just to mention is that if you do go to the Esporta website, esporta.ca, right on there you can go into and see COVID-19, and we have actually introduced a very well-known hygienist by the name of Michael Pinto, and he wrote the protocols for our network and the handling to protect your employees in this type of division going after potentially COVID impacted soft goods. And one final thing just from myself to add in, as we look at this from a sales perspective and looking at getting more opportunities, as we look at what's already in front of us, but even the opportunity to do some sort of contra work with your local high schools or your universities and giving back to them in a sense to, hey, you know what, we can go in and we can clean your football gear and eliminate any sort of chance of MRSA or staph infections, which we have third-party verification of successfully disinfecting and cleaning. It opens up opportunities that if you were to offer that service 2-3 times a year, the cost is extremely minimal. But what it's going to do is, and what it's done for companies like Winmar in Kelowna, BC, where they're doing a WHL hockey team's gear for free 3 times a year, and it's not at the center ice of the arena, but on the ice itself, it says Winmar Property Restoration, and that's about a $25,000 to $30,000 marketing initiative that they don't have to pay for because of them doing some marketing contra. So lots of opportunities on that side as well.
Well, I think even one of the other opportunities, that we heard, and I know that this is a state-by-state basis that you guys are addressing as far as cleaning fire equipment, but not every state has, all of the necessary, those regulations. But I've talked to a couple franchises that are actually doing the fire equipment cleaning and cleaning out, all their soft goods for them at no cost. Which is deepening the relationship in the first responder community, which I know is a serious obstacle for the majority of restoration companies, because that when they have to show up on a priority response, it's looked at as vulturistic, things like that, and this actually increases that ability to be able to have that relationship.
Did we lose Eddie?
Maybe you got hit with the storm, as he was saying.
Maybe so. Well, we can jump into, basically how to position and sell in the marketplace. The first thing is you have an elevated level of customer service. Even a study by J.D. Power and Associates showed that one point of contact for your homeowner elevates customer service dramatically. It's also one point of contact for the adjuster. And I think just about everybody on this call has gotten a call from a homeowner that said, hey, well, not now, but in the past, I'm going out of town in a couple of weeks. I need some shorts and tank tops and swimsuits, but they call ServPro instead of the clothing company. So you have one point of contact for everything, which also gives you total inventory control, total chain of custody inventory control from the pack out to the move back. Like Eddie mentioned, there's always this advantage to being a one-stop shop. And if we recognize trends in the industry where more local and regional offices are closing and more carriers are relying on independent adjusters, it actually makes their job easier to not have to deal with multiple vendors on a claim. You can be their solution for the entirety of the claim, and that's really good thing. We've already talked about the revenue. Bringing more revenue in-house, again, is another trend in the industry that we all should recognize and be proactive about. And when you bring more revenue in-house, it is highly profitable revenue because most of your fixed expenses do not change to bring in another service. And one of the things we talk about all the time is you can bring in an entire division for a minimal amount of square footage. And so we're not having to expand our facilities. We're not having to rent another space. We don't have to have a storefront. So bringing that revenue in-house is going to be tremendously profitable and raise our profit on every division that we have. We've talked about it already. When we can have a consistent revenue stream through the year, then we're less reliant on that seasonal work, that catastrophe work. Is just a much better situation for us when we're looking at our costs and our monthly cash flow and not having to have a certain time of year, or we're not going to be profitable that year. And then finally, we mentioned this as well, when you can do more things, and especially with certain types of items that either A, could not be cleaned before, or the damage was so great that it was automatically designated as non-salvage, then that is going to increase your market share on every claim. It's a very simple equation that if you go to a water loss and shoes and purses that have water damage, insulation, sheetrock, and in some cases even mold, are automatically designated as non-salvage, well, that's not good for the insurance company or the homeowner. But if you can clean those items, then on the next job and the next job that a same adjuster goes to, are they more likely to call a company that can do that sort of thing as opposed to it being an automatic designation as a non-salvage? So that's where we increase our market share on all of our work as well.
Hey,
Something
Russ, real
to-
quick question. Daryl Nestabo said, do you have any ideas on how to educate the adjusters that you have equipment to now clean items that they are cashing out?
Sure. Well, we talked about that's why it's important for our sales department, our marketers, to know how the technology works. But then let's use the technology. We'll talk about it on the very next slide on additional points of contact to be able to use the technology for warehouse tours and lunch and learns and during your CE classes to kind of show and tell with dramatic results what this technology can do. And that enables us to further differentiate what we do from competitors who don't even offer this service in-house. So absolutely, we can bring in our marketing contacts and show them the technology face-to-face.
Jamie, I know you had something you wanted to chime in on. Did you like to expand on that?
Yeah, I just think that, even from the opportunity of, it's, and I think we'll talk a little bit about this on the additional benefits for your sales team, but it's the seeing, believing, touching, feeling, but it also kind of works in conjunction with your reputation. I mean, we, as a prime example of this, we have an operator just in DFW area south. And one of the jobs that they went in at, it was a fire loss. And they went in with firemen came in, they completely saturated the home. A lot of construction material fell onto the soft goods, such as insulation, drywall. And so our operator took these items and washed them through the Sporta, but the actual CAT adjuster was a large loss CAT adjuster for contents. Just truly did not believe that things were able to be cleaned and be able to, eliminate what was on it. And so we helped him. We sent information and samples to the DLI, which is the Dry Cleaning Laundry Institute. And they actually did a report on, I think Russ was about eight or 10 different items, and came back, showing that there was zero foreign construction material in the actual fibers and fabrics of what they were cleaning. So this takes time. I mean, it's education. It's like anything new that if people are consistently sending and using a dry cleaner and using that relationship, that's what they're familiar with. But like anything, it's you put your boots on the ground. It's education, it's information, and it's a differentiator. And I think that that's something that Eddie, you'll probably talk about, again, when we look at the benefits from the sales team as your expertise in sales as well, is that what is your advantage? What's your edge? How do you get in front of your adjusters and your audiences that differentiate you from your competition?
Well, I think that's probably one of the most important things is, it's so more often than not, in consulting all over the country, it's every restoration salesperson has that same mentality. We do fire, water, mold, and, you show up and throw up, and you have to be deliberate and you have to be very intentional about what you're going in to go speak to not only prospective clients about, but about even your additional client base. And, the big questions that I always got was, how in the world did you sell as much as you sold where you were? And it was because I constantly was reaching and challenging our team, production team and in-house team to say, can we do this? Can we do that? If I bring this to the table, can we figure this out? And this gives you that very important additional talking point whenever you go to go meet with your client or prospective client, which is what most salespeople are desperately always looking for is, what am I going to talk to them about now? You know, it's like, they already know that I do this, you know, and now I have to wait for something to happen. To whereas, to echo Russ's sentiment back a little ways, where he said, you know, everybody's waiting on the CAT event to happen. This is immediate gratification revenue. You know, this is a revenue channel that you can stimulate, that if you work in the hotel, you know, you're sitting on the board of directors of the Hotel and Lodging Association, this is an oh, by the way conversation. Do you know that we can take care of your linens for you, as opposed to referring those out to Textile Restoration Company or a linen cleaning company or Centos or, you know, any of these people that are doing that? We can do that. Since you trust us with your business, trust us with this too. You know, and how often, you know, Sean talked about this in a previous one. How important is it in a fire situation, if you have little ones that were involved in that, to be able to return that teddy bear to them within 24 hours, you know, or that blanket or that special item, as opposed to relinquishing that control to a textile restoration company and getting it back when they tell you you're going to get it back.
Absolutely.
You know, you provide that
Emotional.
additional level of customer service. Yeah, you're connecting on an empathetic, emotional basis, which is really where your sales process should be. Because it's not about you. It's not about your commission check. It is about them. And it is about being a solution to their problem. And now, by adding soft goods in and textile restoration into your own facility, you have now become an even greater solution to their immediate need.
And we just
Well,
had another
very well
question.
said, Eddie.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yes.
We just had another question from John. What is the typical square footage of the Asporta setup? How many guys to clean a typical residential fire soft contents job? You guys want to elaborate on that a little bit, what that looks like for a standard operator?
Sure. Your entire setup can be in as little as 400 to 500 square feet. We've seen it even smaller. I would recommend it be about 400 to 500 square feet, which would include your washing and drying, your drying room, your finishing equipment, your tables, all of your carts and racks. So very, very small footprint to be able to process a large amount of soft contents. With that small of a footprint, you could process up to $500,000 a year in soft content. So you don't need nearly as much space as people think you do. On the other side too is, what about storage? So when we're packing out furniture and hard contents, we need more storage. A typical soft content job of around an average is about 5,000 to 6,000 will all fit in one vault. So the storage itself is not a big need for additional or extra space. If you do just, let's say, 2 pack outs a month, you could actually process that with about 10% in payroll costs with probably 2 people. And you could even have, which a lot of our users start out with, cross-training staff that normally cleans hard contents to do both. And so the employer staffing needs are not as great as people think as well. And it's almost similar to hard contents, where as soon as we take care of an emergency order, which a homeowner needs right away, and then if any items are wet, of course, we want to process those. But now we have time. So we can work on the hard contents first and then do the soft contents. We can work on them both at the same time. There's a lot of flexibility with soft contents, just as there is with hard contents. Jamie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, on the facility side, bang on. And, one of the things that we always hear as well is, especially the storage side of things, people get very concerned about how much more space do we need. If you are comparing it to furniture, appliances, and hard contents, I mean, that takes up a vast majority of your storage facility area, where soft goods, it's essentially in bags. It's soft. It's very easy to store those. And as far as the liability as well too, even just to speak about that, when we're packing out a home, we're essentially, I think Russ, you can attest to this, that we're typically 3 maybe 4 hours to pack out a single family home of all soft goods. And if you're dropping a shirt on the floor, it doesn't break. If you're dropping a plate on the floor, it breaks. So there's tremendous difference in liability involved to hard and soft goods. And then finally, on the employee side, one thing that I always love to have conversations with our owners is internally promoting. And I think, again, right now, there's a lot of uncertainty with the COVID-19 virus that's going around, and people potentially being laid off and potentially not in a situation where they can be employed anymore because there may not be as much work or as much opportunity to get the work. And again, it goes back to being able to maximize every revenue dollar per claim and keeping your key people. Because if you let your key people go at a time like this, when everything could be over and done with 3-4 months, if you can put them in a division that's a money generator, it's a high profitability generator, and you're keeping good people, it's such a compliment to keeping your business afloat and going.
So I think, one of the other preconceived notions and one of the other myths, which there seems to be a lot of them, because, the one thing I want to talk about, that I keep hearing reiterate is that the general conception or the general consensus is this, and that's just not true. So I think that the biggest thing, that I, especially after getting to meet you guys, and getting in depth into what it is that you guys do, is that unfortunately people have been filled with a lot of myths involving this. And the other one is that this is just way too costly to get into. As restoration owners and even as directors of business development, I hope, from the business development side, that ROI is on the first and foremost. Don't spend money unless you can show that it's going to make money. But this is definitely not as expensive as what people think it is to get into, and they can recoup the expense of the unit relatively quickly. So the things are, is the expense is far outweighed by the revenue? Will it eventually cost you more not to invest in the technology? And can you save money, lose market share, which is more costly? So these are some of those misconceptions, Russ, and Jamie, that I want you guys to address, because I think that whenever you look at what the investment is on a unit like this as compared to doing $500,000 in changing it. If you're $1.5 million operator, you're trying to reach that elusive 2 million. This is the answer. And especially, whenever you guys provide all of the training and expertise behind it, you're not just handing them a unit and saying, okay, thanks, and we'll see you later. You guys are that support matrix to ensure the success. You're providing them with all the tools they need to be successful. So to me, that is just invaluable. You can't put a price on that. It is. So can you expand and dispel that myth that this just really isn't that costly?
Well, I think the way that we have to do is to change our view. How do we look at this? And if we focus on only one part of the equation, you could say expensive is one word, but let's really look at it as an investment in technology. And an investment in technology has a greater return. And we invest in things like ultrasonics, which is great. It's great to have, highly recommended. But what it does is it's a large investment that will save you a lot of labor, and that elevates your efficiency and your profit. By the same token, when you invest in something like the Esporta, you're creating an entirely new revenue stream. So it's not like an ultrasonics. It's not like a new box truck. It actually makes you a lot more money for the investment. And on the flip side, we talked about it, the trend in the industry is bringing more services in-house and embracing technology, whether it is the Esporta or ultrasonics or Matterport technology, and the companies that do not do that are falling behind the curve. It's going to cost you more down the road not to invest in it. And we talked about the analogy of if I can and mitigate a water damage, but also save the soft contents that would be automatically designated as non-salvage, and now that adjuster is more likely to call me on the next claim and the next claim that means they're not calling another company. And so when you're in that group, the analogy is we can't stay where we are. We are going to move forward. We're going to invest in technology. We're going to bring services in-house, or we are going to start losing market share. So which side of the equation do you want to be on, and how can we really reframe the way that we look at this as an investment, not an expense? And that will help us. And Jamie, that you talk about this slide a lot, this investment has a huge return. So I'll let you
Yeah, and I
take
think
over that.
this is, again, the factual information. This was a screenshot from the Exactware report that they did a webinar last week, and we were able to capture this site's personal property line item quantity. And if you look at what is the number one line item that they're seeing as far as quantity for items that are being processed through their system, which is Exactware, which is the 800-pound gorilla. You also look at what, expanding on that and what the Esporta, what we can do with the additional line items being linens and soft goods, sporting goods, outdoor goods, luggage, bags, and accessories. And if you combined all that, that represents, close to 35% of all of the content items from a single family home. And so again, if we're leaving this on the table, it's such a tragic situation, because if we're letting fear overcome our opportunity of growth, it's going to limit us in what we can be actually doing moving forward. And Eddie, you nailed it on the head. It's at what is the key thing that a sales individual within an organization wants? They want that silver bullet. They want that differentiator in order to go out and how to sell and how to get in front of people. And when we look at the actual expense, and if we talk about what is the dollar figure of investment into this, the Esporta IS 4200 series model is $49,000. And so when we look at that in a comparative model to what else is out there, whether it's a box truck, whether it's a truck, whether it's ultrasonic, or whether it's other pieces of solutions that are out there, it's a very minimal cost when you're looking at an average revenue per claim of being close to $6,000 to $7,000. That also doesn't include and incorporate sewage, mold. We have third-party verification of successfully disinfecting and cleaning category 2, 3, and mold jobs, which was also done by Michael Pinto back in 2007 and consistently since then. So again, one more time, if we're able to do, for the majority of the people that are on the call, if we're subcontracting 2 to 3 jobs a month out at $6,000, I mean, that's over $120,000 a year right there. So your cost is able to be recuperated, in a matter of, call it 6 to 8 months. And if you go to the next slide, we're very good at taking this data that we've generated from our network, and we have over 200, and I believe the number now is 250 locations within the United States, and also in Canada and throughout North America, which does make us the largest contents network, first of all. But secondly, we do surveys and reports through them to really understand what is that knowledge, what is the data that they're experiencing, what is the average revenue per claim. We do have third-party financing, as an example, where your first 6 months you're paying $100 a month. We understand that getting into this, to write a check even for that amount, it's not a DHU. But with that being said, we can show you that the ROI is there, especially when we saw the number of 33% of the people on this call are sending out that 2 to 3 jobs per month. So where I'm going with that is that we are available to do one-on-one sessions with you, do ROI analysis. And quite honestly, I'll tell you, I don't mean to be blunt or arrogant, but I will tell you, if this is not a right fit for you based on where your current business model is, I will tell you. And I think that that's where we're a little bit different from the whole sales mindset, is that we want to encourage people to get into this, but we want to make sure they're ready and they're prepared to.
I think that's good. And I wanted to kind of come back and address something that I think that we overlooked, because we're so focused, on the ROI, but also to what the potential force through the trees mentality is as a salesperson by having something like this. You could have a very elusive school system that you are really trying to win the relationship. So by having a system like this in place, you go in and offer to go back, and echo Russ's point, you go back and go offer to clean their sporting equipment for them at no charge. And when something does happen, a major mitigation job, even a minor mitigation job, your presence of mind, because you have had additional face time with them, and you're operating through servant's heart mentality. You're actually taking care of them, which in return, they're going to want to do business with people who are taking care of them, who are operating like this. I know up in Pennsylvania, I saw this open tremendous opportunities for a franchise through the public school systems by cleaning the sports equipment, and they ended up with $1 million mitigation job because of it.
Fantastic.
So as salespeople, again, it is, or even as owners, to communicate to your salespeople the forest through the trees mentality. This could be the differentiator to help you win a relationship by just putting that servitude out there for just a little bit in order to garner the whole relationship or the whole piece of the pie. So again, it's like, I know we've all done it. I know we've all went in and done carpet cleanings at cost or lost money on it, just so that we could brand our business and be able to do that forest through the trees mentality. This is another fantastic opportunity that could be sitting there to help you win those ever elusive relationships that you might not have been able to crack prior to owning a system like this.
Well, I think
Eddie, I'm sorry.
One more thing, Russ, just to jump in real quick. I think when we really look at what is the cost to not do this, what are we at risk of? And when we look at, again, for the majority of the people, even at 2 jobs a month at an average revenue per claim of $6,000, the cost to not do this is over $140,000. So if we look at it that way, that could be yours. I mean, with simply not picking up the phone, you're just essentially doing it yourself. So there is a cost involved to not do this. And so we need to look at it a little bit differently. And, we're losing money. It's on the table.
Well, and that's the corporate cost, but this is not a bad thing. If our sales team is motivated by, wanting to help people, of course we want that. That reflects in everything they do, but they also get a commission. And so if I'm at a fire job and all we're getting is hard contents, and the bill might be $7,000, but if we got the soft contents, you add 6 on top of that, then my commission is almost double. Now, to me, that's motivating.
Big time.
That's
Now you're speaking Jamie and I's language.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, we had a lot of people respond that the learning of this business, and this is where I think you guys really differentiate yourselves as an industry leader in restoration overall. But talk a little bit about, the process of learning this, and then we have some questions after we're done with this when we wrap up that will tie into this. But let's go into the learning process, the setup time, how, if I was to get into this tomorrow, what is that cumbersome process, if there is one, to learn how to get into soft content cleaning?
Sure. So we have multiple ways that we provide. We're one of the only companies really that don't just sell a piece of equipment and wish you luck, but we're there with you every step of the way. So in the beginning, your 1 or 2 or 3 employees are going to become Esporta certified operators by studying online and taking a test, which literally you can do in a day. Then on the machine itself, because all of the Esportas are connected to the cloud, and there is an iPad on every machine with tutorials, documents, videos, Skype call capability. We are there to answer questions and help you. The HDMI tablet has all of the formulas preset, so there's no measuring and adding and putting detergents and things into it. And then, of course, our ongoing training that involves webinars, regional training events, on-site visits is probably, I think, the best in the industry, where we go through with our network of operators best practices on everything from the pack out to the move back. And it includes things like, how to pack out efficiently. Jamie talked about the average pack out on a hard content job is probably 2 days with a certain number of people. And for the soft contents, 2 to 4 hours. much faster if you know how to do it. And then we go through sorting, packaging and finishing, storage, how to choose the right dry cleaner. The list goes on. And we're developing a new session that will be a full day and a half on just best billing practices through Xactimate and inventory. So we are with our users every step of the way. And again, it's not rocket science. Like we talked about, you don't have to be a dry cleaner. Even dry cleaners don't want to be dry cleaners. The majority of things in people's closets today is washable. We wash clothes at home. It's really not that different of a process to wash clothes in the Esporta. Now, it's not, obviously a little bit more challenging than that, but not something that anyone that has any experience, even someone who's been at home raising their kids and they just want a part-time job, can operate the Esporta technology. We've made it incredibly user-friendly. Jamie, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think, again, the last, two parts I just want to add into that, being at the company at Esporta for just about 10 years and in the industry for just about 18 years, I think the key here is the learning mechanism. I mean, the turnover of employees that we see and that, companies experience it happens all the time. And unfortunately, that's just the reality of the world that you live in. And so when we developed our new IS models connected to the internet, so just to clarify, not all of our Esportas are connected to the internet. Our newest ones are, which is the IS series model. We have Skype support right from the tablet on the machine. So if you have somebody that is questioning, how to do some leather jackets, or maybe Eddie has his Harley Davidson leather chaps that have mold on them because they've been sitting for a while, you may have some questions. Even though you go through the extensive training right then and there on the floor of the machine, you can Skype our service department. And same with the maintenance. We always get people saying, geez, a machine like this, golly, it's going to take a lot to maintain. The machine itself is not bolted down 14 inches to the ground like a typical commercial extractor. It just sits on the surface with some plates that kind of hold it in place. There's not a lot of stress on the machine. Our G-force extraction is quite low. It's the power of the detergents. It's the power of the recipes. We have an R&D department that consistently updates and changes our recipes, which is also very important to know. As we get new information and data, right now, again, working with the COVID-19 topics, working with viral disinfectants being applied into our washes, we're able to create that here at head office and then simply push it down to our operators. So again, we're very committed to the success of our operators. That's bottom line. And I think, it's something that, if you take that leap, you take that step, to Eddie's point and Sean's point, you have to look for that differentiator in that sales, bullet that's in your gun, and not to get gun wise, but that's what you need.
So I think, this is a good time to transition into the last poll question, which is, when are you looking at getting into soft content? I mean, I think that the answer should be yesterday, especially based on this information. And like I said, it's Sean and I talk with restoration providers all over the country all the time that are complaining about the fact that they just can't hit their goals and objectives, or that their salespeople have run out of things to talk about. That they wish that they had something to be able to create or generate additional revenue. And I think this has answered all this. I mean, my whole take on this deal is you can't afford not to do it. And that's my true belief system. You can't afford not to have this. I mean, you're giving your money away already, whether it's one job a month, whether it's in upwards of 10 jobs a month, you've just handed someone else money that you can do. And the training and support behind it that you guys provide, I think is unprecedented and unparalleled. To be able to sit there and say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. We're here to hold your hand through every single step of the way, not just on the technical side, but how to position it in the market space, which I think is the most important, because that's where salespeople are lacking in development. Is they're handed something like, okay, yeah, we do mold remediation, and unless they go through AMRT, it's just all what they learn by trial and error. And it's not that way with you guys. You guys support how to put this into the market space and how to utilize it. We did have some questions. Is there anything else that anybody else wanted to add before we jump into the question and answer session? Because I know you guys on here have got to have some questions about this, and we're going to dive right into them. So Jamie or Russ, is there anything you want to add before we start that?
Yeah, just real quick on the last slide that Sean had up. I mean, for all of you that have committed to this webinar, it's really, invest in your time to invest into looking at this. I'm very happy to work with you on, specialized pricing for those specifically that have attended this webinar. You can email me at jamie.santos4.ca. Again, right now, we also have, your first 6 months, you're paying $100 a month. And thereafter, you're typically, depending on your credit, $1,000 to $1,500 a month thereafter. So there's things like that we can take offline. That's the last thing I just wanted to mention there. Thanks, Eddie.
Sure.
And
I just had
real quick. John has had a few questions, and they're really good. So I want to get those, and then I got a few in the chat box as well, which we'll get to. But John's first question was, what's the typical time for an Esporta setup? 6 months with training? ? Certification from IRCRC to legitimize the service in our market.
Yes, I'll start it, then Russ, you can dovetail into it. I mean, typical time, once the order is placed, our typical time to ship is 30 days, if not sooner, depending on what we have for stock and availability. The unique thing is that within that 30 days, we're not just sitting on our hands waiting for the machine to arrive. Daryl, our training team, Russ, is already actively working with your sales and marketing team, actively working with the operators of the machine. I do facility layouts, facility designs to ensure that the space is set up so when the machine arrives, it's plug and play. So quite honestly, in a realistic expectation, when that machine arrives, you're essentially ready to go. So I would say a more realistic opportunity from time of purchase to roll out is probably 6 weeks, not 6 months. We want that going. We want you to be making money, and we want you to be tackling this division. Now, Russ, do you want to speak a little bit about our certification and our work that we have done and continue to do with IICRC?
Well, I know that we've gotten our fabric and textile CE restoration class certified with the IICRC nationwide. So they recognize both the technology and our ability to help educate agents and adjusters on the importance of using a technology like this. So we definitely are very well known with most of the companies are certifications like IICRC, and then we're also much better positioned with carriers and adjusters and even TPAs on what the technology can do.
Yeah,
and on your
I think one last thing just to add to that is that, when you go through training, and Russ, you spoke a little bit about this, you're going on our online courses and classes that we do have. We put every operator through them. They typically can be completed within 3 to 4 or 5 hours, depending on your computer skills. But out of that, we do actually certify you. I mean, so you write an exam. Are you certified in the operation of the machine and the handling pre and post? Because again, when you're dealing with sewage and mold, you have to have your own company certification to be able to handle that from a PPE perspective. But from the handling of soft goods, we actually can certify you from the Esporta Certified Operators Network. And so you have a certificate that you can say, hey, we've been certified, we've gone through the testing for this.
One last thing too, Jamie, before the COVID-19 on our regional training events, we were holding them almost every single month. Now they're in different parts of the country, so you would decide, especially a new operator, it might be worth it to go a little bit further, but being able to access and send key employees to these training events has been extremely beneficial, and we can really accelerate that training process by having you come to those training events.
We've got time for just a couple more questions. John did have a secondary question. It says, what are the typical monthly costs for detergents and other Esporta products necessary for operation if I'm running 2 typical claims?
Yeah, great question. So I'll kind of break that down. And I also see there's another question on the ROI worksheets, and this will kind of go hand in hand. We've got this data down not almost to a science based upon all of our IS machines are connected to the internet. So we can do wash report data on what the average cost is per wash. And so a typical single family home holds roughly 800 pounds to 1,000 pounds of garments. So on the 800-pound side, our machine will do 100 pounds at a time. So if you take 8 washes per job, call it 8 to 10 washes per job, the average cost of detergent per wash is $15. We put that at 10 washes, that's $130. So if you start to factor in through the ROI, if you're spending $130 of detergent per job, it really helps you strengthen, where the profitability lies in this division. So again, you're looking at that average cost, which is essentially less than 2% of the overall cost of the job. And secondly, we do have a software license fee, which is only $50 a month per machine. So that is essentially out of the gate. You have obviously your machine, your startup costs, and your installation, and all the peripheral items that we sell with the package. And then on an ongoing basis, outside of your job costs, it's $50 a month.
Nice. Kieran Sampson wanted to know, how does the Asporta system fit in with the industry standards such as ANSI, IICRC, S500 standards, etc.? Is there any resistance out there from the loss adjusters that the system doesn't meet the standards for whatever reason?
No, none at all. In fact, the Asporta is one of the only companies that allows you to be able to do, for example, ATP testing, to make sure that things are not only clean, but in most cases, food grade clean. The process itself is patented, as well as the proprietary detergents. And any other company out there, whether it's a local or regional company or national company, are for the most part offering restoration based on opinion. It looks clean, it smells clean, it must be clean. So the interesting thing too is Asporta has gone above and beyond when it comes to the process and the patented and proprietary detergents and technology to be able to prove that things are fully restored, where every other company out there doesn't have anything like that. And there's not a national certification, despite the name of what one of the national companies is. There is no independent organization out there that's saying your items are completely restored based on our certification. It's just not there. So you're actually going way beyond what has typically been the case when you're using an Asporta as opposed to any other technology or any other vendor.
Fantastic. Do we have any other questions? Go ahead.
We had another question, Eddie, in the chat box from, and Michael Whittle just asked, we will send out a copy of the presentation with the ROI worksheet. So you'll get that by this afternoon with a replay of the webinar as well. But if you want to go ahead and ask Raymond's question, Eddie, you can.
Oh, absolutely. Raymond, so I apologize. I just now saw that. As COVID-19 virus potential on every surface, what extra steps or PPE shall be implemented to use the Asporta or to do soft contents? Currently, they only do mitigation and rebuild.
Yeah, I'll start with that, Russ, and then if you want to add to it. First and foremost, Raymond, I hope San Francisco as well. Nice to have you on the call. Bottom line is that if you go to our website, asporta.ca, we had Michael Pinto as a third party. He's very much involved on the restoration side of things with COVID-19 and coronavirus topics. He actually wrote the standardized protocols in order to handle the PPE side of things from pack out to pack back. So you can go there right now and you can access that. As far as soft goods, we do have specialized recipes that have been implemented, and we are working on a one-on-one basis with our operators when opportunities come up. And one of the things that Michael has stated is that although there is there's really no way of tracking the virus pre or post on porous surfaces at the moment. One of the things that's being stated to use by the CDC is hydrogen peroxide. And as an organic disinfectant, that's one of the main killing agents in our proprietary wash recipes and detergents. So we do have a modified, what Michael Pinto is calling a modified sewage wash, in order to handle potentially impacted COVID-19. So Raymond, we can work with you on a one-on-one basis. Our operators are doing it today. We have some up in Portland. We've got some, other areas of the country that are actually doing this in Canada. With the government, US, we're working with the government on a particular level as well too. So there's lots of things that we're implementing. We're being very serious with this, and our R&D is implementing this on a daily basis.
Mhm.
We had another question.
And then go ahead.
Oh, we had another question from Steven. He's talking about if internet connection locally is poor. Is there any alternative to being connected to the internet so our wash cycles are not interrupted?
It's interesting. We are our new IS 4200. We're starting to figure out new methods of that. Stephen, I believe you're from Edinburgh. I know you guys have. You're in a little bit of a rural area, so we will be working with you more on a one-on-one basis. I know Steve Gunner has this at the top of his priority. The challenge is that within the internet, the machine is reporting this metrics, and that's how we are able to push wash recipes to you. And so that's where the data is coming from. So that offline and work with you more on a one-on-one basis. But there is alternative measures that we haven't implemented. But again, the critical piece of the internet connection is so vital because of the data and the information that you're able to access, and so are we on the machine. So that's just what I have to say about that.
And I think that's it on the questions. If anybody has any other ones, I
had one actually come in through a text, guys.
Okay.
Obviously, be a little shy to post on the group, but actually two came in from this individual. First one was, how do you know sewage items are clean and safe, which I'll address, and then can machines ship to me during this pandemic, which I'll also address. First of all, the shipping in the pandemic, our supplier and our route are deemed as an essential service, so we do not have any delays in shipment across the border from Canada to the US, or even international to the UK, Australia, and even currently right now to Russia. The other question in regards to sewage, this also applies for mold, is that, again, when Michael Pinto wrote our third-party verification and testing through labs, the device that he used is called the ATP testing device. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, which is essentially an all-living organic material. So this device is a pre-swab on any item that may have a contamination level, and it's able to pull through RLU, which is relative light unit. I'm speaking really fast, so we can get into this on a one-on-one basis, but through RLU, you're able to identify the level of ATP based on those items. So we have a sewage wash and a modified mold wash as well too, for anything with leather shoes, belts, purses, stuffed animals, all those sorts of things. It's a more intense wash. And so we would do a pre-test, and then we would do a post-test. And this is where, again, Michael Pinto used this device to prove that items that were impacted by sewage and mold actually came out as food grade clean with a reading of RLU 0 to 10. So it's not just us saying, hey, we can sniff it and it smells great or it looks great. We use science to offer peace of mind, and so can you. That's so critical. Going to the sales and marketing, why are you here today? It's what are you able to do different? When we sat on a panel with major franchise dry cleaning organizations, we literally sat there, and it was consistent that they said that they sniff things so much before they go back. They sniff it. There's no science. We use ATP. We use other methods of science to be able to ensure that things are clean and disinfected. There's my speech.
And every restoration provider should have an ATP meter. If you don't have one, you need to email me as to why you need one. Helps you win fights with adjusters and in categories of water claims. So, but also too in what this would. But yeah. So guys, we want to take. I know we've ran over our time, and everybody has stayed very patient and been on there because I think this is such a relevant topic. I want to thank both Jamie and Russ for getting on here and sharing their expertise. Like I said, I mean, the one thing I want to leave you with, you can't afford not to do this. I encourage every one of you on here to reach out to Jamie or Russ, or even myself for any questions that you may have. I'd be happy to direct you over to them. We're huge proponents and supporters of Asporta. We totally believe in this system. And guys, we definitely want to say, thank you so much for your time, and stay safe. I mean, that's what this is all about. We're all going to get through this. One Restoration Nation. You just go do your part.
Thank you for having us, guys.
Thank
and
you.
Thank you for everyone on the call, and anything that you guys need, you feel free to contact myself, jamie.sands@asporta.ca. Sean will send out my contact information as well as Russ.
Yeah,
Thank you, guys.
I know some of you are already jumping off. Kelsey had one quick question for you, Eddie. If you are just leaving, if you do want a one-on-one with Jamie or Russ, I know several of you are requesting that. Even if you're not ready, that's perfectly fine, but I encourage you to always call them, ask questions if you're on the fence about it. They're very educational, and they're not going to push for you to buy or invest until you're absolutely ready. So I would definitely recommend being proactive with that. Kelsey just asked a quick question, Eddie. What does a typical ATP meter typically cost?
Roughly
Remember?
between 15 and 1800. Isn't that right? I think that's right
I
around
think-
the.
I think we sell them for about 13 through us.
Oh, well,
and
then
you have your
I'd
swabs.
buy it through you guys then, because that's cheaper than I think through John Don or anybody else. But yeah, it's I would get in touch with Jamie about getting one, because that's cheaper than I can get them,
Awesome.
and they're invaluable. I mean, I really would. I would have one.
Good deal.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a good one.